folks, welcome back to Untitled Chapter. This is Chris once again. Hey folks, welcome back to Untitled Chapter. This is Chris once again. And this video is about something a little far afield from what we normally cover, about Southeast Asia. Now, it wouldn't be the first time I've covered news and events in Asia, but it is a rare event here on Chris Wyatt Africa. But I'm covering it because it's important to talk about this topic and the limitations of power, even for a great power, a unipolar power or unipolar hegemon like the United States has limited options when it comes to the world. What am I talking about specifically? Well, I'm talking about the country of Myanmar, better known as Burma to most of us, located in Southeast Asia with a population of about 54 million people, overwhelmingly Buddhist, but of course it has a large Rohingya Muslim minority, which has been a point of contention since 2017. And Burma has come under a lot of pressure internationally for abuses. Thousands of Rohingya killed, 700,000 or so fled to neighboring Bangladesh. Quite a mess. Now, Burma, now known as Myanmar, gained its independence from Britain back in 1948, and it was ruled by the military from 62 until 2011, quite a long period, entire lifespan for many people. And then finally, civilian rule began coming back in. But the military now is in charge, and they have imposed a year-long state of emergency, curfews. Yep. The former leader of the country is under house arrest. That's Miss Suu Kyi, who was in detention for nearly 15 years before she was released and led her party to the NLD to control of the government. She is accused of possessing, get this, possessing illegal walkie-talkies. What a danger a communication device can be. Violating COVID-19 restrictions during last year's election campaign. And publishing information that may cause fear or alarm. Dear gosh. Sounds like she's on YouTube. Watch out for those censors. I know how they work. Fear or alarm. Now, other members of her party have also been arrested and detained. Yeah. So the military has imposed, as I said, curfews and limits on gatherings. Curfews, limits on gatherings. Boy, that sounds a lot like COVID-19. Aung San Suu Kyi, world famous for her 1990s campaign to restore democracy. As I said, spent nearly 15 years in house detention and won the Nobel Prize back in 1991 while under house arrest. Yep. It was in 2015 after her release that she led the NLD to victory in Myanmar's first openly contested elections in 2.5 decades. Amazing. Yeah, but unfortunately for her, the country is suffering a bit of a bad reputation even before this military coup that took place in February of 2021. And that's a consequence of its ill treatment of the Rohingya minority, a Muslim group that has suffered immensely, according to international observers. Yep. She's even appeared before the International Court of Justice back in 2019, and she denied allegations that the military had been committing a genocide. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is that the United States and the United Kingdom have responded with sanctions on military officials. I'm going to talk about those in just a moment. And it's important to note that China, a UN Security Council member, made a statement in which they refused to condemn the coup. They refused to participate in this. And they said that all sides should resolve differences. So China stops the international community from acting on the actions in Burma. Pretty crazy stuff, isn't it? Well, what could the U.S. do? Well, let's put this in perspective. The United States and Burma, or Myanmar, have a 2013 Trade and Investment Framework, TIFA, and that sets conditions for trade between the two countries. In 2019, the entire gross domestic product of Burma was $66 billion. 2020, two-way trade between the U.S. and Burma was $1.3 billion, with the U.S. having a $689 million deficit. So we could do without that trade deficit. Burma ranks only as the 115th ranked exporter of goods to the U.S. market. Primarily clothing and textiles are coming from Burma. We can get those from Vietnam, Taiwan, Africa, China, lots of other places, Korea. Now, since 2012, the United States has provided $1.5 billion in support for democratic transition, economic transformation, for the peace process, all of this to help improve the lives of millions, including assisting communities affected through violence and through combating hate speech and communal violence. So that's mostly through USAID, Agency for International Development. But one thing, a very important note here that does affect Burma, specifically the Burmese, is that the U.S. President's malaria program has helped Burma achieve an 84% decline in malaria over the last 6 years. That's an incredible. difference. But here's what the Biden administration has announced for Burma. But let me, before I read these sanctions, let me just talk about this. This is a statement yesterday on the 28th of February 2021 by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on violence, because violence has picked up again. More people were killed the past few days. The United States is alarmed by the Burmese security forces' violence against peaceful protesters. The killings today represent an escalation of the ongoing crackdown on pro-democracy protesters since the February 1st coup. I offer my heartfelt condolences to the families of the courageous protesters who have lost their lives while peacefully demonstrating in support of democracy in Burma. The United States stands in solidarity with the people of Burma, who continue to bravely voice their aspirations for democracy, rule of law, and respect for human rights. We will continue coordinating closely with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region and around the world to hold those responsible for violence to account and to reinforce our support for the people of Burma. To that end, we are preparing additional actions to impose further cost on those responsible for this latest outbreak of violence and the recent coup. We will have more to share in the coming days. Well, let me share with you what they've done since the 1st of February. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot for an administration that claims they're concerned about the Burmese people. Specifically, they impose new sanctions on military individuals and entities. This is not going to have much of an impact. These people have resources and they can do what they want. It's good to be the king. These are not conditions that are going to hurt them, trust me. Anyway, targeting the Burmese military and its leaders. They have designated 10 individuals and 3 entities for their association with the military apparatus. Among these are 6 members of the National Defense and Security Council, including the Commander-in-Chief of the Burmese military, and that's Min Aung Hlaing, and the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Burmese military forces, So Win, as well as 4 members of the State Administration Council. Now, they have also, the Department of the Treasury has also targeted spouses and adult children of these folks. Now, the 3 entities include Myanmar Ruby Enterprise, Myanmar Imperial Jade Company, and another wholly owned subsidiary by the Burmese military. All 3 have been designated for sanctions. Now, they've also imposed export restrictions, limiting exports of sensitive goods to the Burmese military and other entities associated with the recent coup. I'd be surprised and shocked to find out that we're sending any sensitive military hardware to Burma, given its history. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Restricting U.S.-backed assets, the president announced that the U.S. government is taking steps to prevent the generals from improperly accessing more than $1 billion in Burmese government funds held in the United States. All right. That sounds an awful lot like 1979 during the Iranian Revolution, when we froze assets of the Iranian government here in the U.S. so that the theocracy couldn't get a hold of it, Ayatollah Khomeini's government. Now, working with international allies, partners, and like-minded institutions, building international support. This is what we do every day. It's called diplomacy. So it's kind of funny that this is what they hold up as an achievement, to force the Burmese military to back down. Last week, the United States helped bring together the UN Security Council. Woo! Let's see. We're a permanent member of the Security Council. What the hell do we do to bring them together? Call a meeting? Wow. Not impressive. But for the uninformed, the low IQ voter, the low information voter, doesn't know much about how the world works. They're probably impressed by hearing that the Biden administration brought together the UN Security Council. We're one of 5 permanent members. You just pick up the phone, people come. Gee, many crickets. Prioritizing the people of Burma. Well, we are freezing U.S. assistance that benefits the Burmese government. Well, what assistance benefits the Burmese government? Any assistance does, because it improves and ameliorates the lives and conditions of Burmese. And if we're doing that, then the Burmese government doesn't have to do it, and there's less pressure on them. We're going to maintain our support for healthcare, civil society groups, and other groups that benefit the Burmese people directly. Now, as part of these restrictions, they're going to redirect $42.4 million of assistance away from that benefits the government. And this included money for economic policy reform, programs to support and strengthen civil society in the private sector, which ultimately will probably be self-defeating. If we're trying to strengthen the civil society sector, why would we withdraw from this situation? It's always almost comical to listen to people's sanctions and how they're counterproductive. But USAID will continue its $69 million in bilateral programs for the health of people of Burma, as I mentioned, malaria greatly reduced, the democratic space, food security, and support the independent media, promote peace and reconciliation. Well, I have about this much confidence that U.S. government sanctions and restrictions on leaders within the military and security apparatus will have a positive impact and change the situation in Burma. Let's see. I trust that for about that long. Yep. Less than a microsecond. Yeah, folks, this is not going to do anything. But here's the thing. Before we criticize Biden, what exactly is he supposed to do? put the 7th Fleet off the coast of Burma, of Myanmar, put them out there, right outside Rangoon. Boom, here you go. Here's an aircraft carrier to intimidate and threaten them. Should we embargo trade? Should we close their sea lanes down? Should we attack them? No, these are all ridiculous options. There aren't a whole lot of options available to a country that has only $1.3 billion in trade with this country. And a lot of that's clothing, textiles we don't need anyway. So it's not going to have a major impact. Anyway, folks, whenever you criticize or you think about what a government does or doesn't do, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, remember the diplomacy only goes so far, and military force is a last resort. So what will the U.S. do about Myanmar? I guess we'll need to wait for National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan's forthcoming additional measures. But I can pretty much guarantee this. They're not going to have any genuine effect on the military. They're going to do what they want to do in Burma unless someone twists their arm with force, either diplomatic, military, whatever it takes. But until then, they're going to do what they want to do. The military ran this country from the 60s all the way until 2011. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot. Appreciate support for the channel. Hope you found this illuminating and interesting. I know it's not Africa, but people in Africa and in the U.S. are also concerned about events around the world, particularly in Burma or Myanmar as they unfold since the February 1st, 2021 coup. Take care and be safe out there. Thanks a lot for your support.